What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Off the Couch Boxing. I'm your host, Reckless Rex Ruger, along with Alexis Arguello in the form of a puppet.
And I'm your other host, Frank Benji's, back with another one.
And of course, we're going to fucking be talking fighting, boxing, and spicy talk today, man, with our guest, man, because this is going to be a good one, man. We'll get him on here, man. We'll get him on here. Just the man we want to talk to right there, RAFI KOHAN. How's it going, man?
What's going on, fellas?
Man.
Hanging in over here.
Listen, man, are you a New York State guy?
I'm not anymore. I live in Atlanta now, but yeah, I mean, I grew up in Jersey and lived in New York for a long time.
Yeah, we're in upstate New York, right near the Boxing Hall of Fame. Actually, we're right in central New York, and it is freezing here.
It's been cold down here too, to be honest with you. You know, we were down in down in the teens for a couple of days in a row. We get, I lose my thick skin after a couple of years down south.
Hell yeah. And now, so I just discovered your writing, man. I'm on my audiobook app. I'm always looking up books on combat sports, boxing, which is obviously, very akin to what we do on our show here, man. So I thought your book especially would tie in and be very pertinent with combat sports. But, the book is called Trash Talk, which obviously should sum up, obviously what the book is about. I mean, but first of all, you look like such a mild-mannered guy, man, and such a nice guy. Why did this topic become like that light bulb moment? Like why
He's a New Yorker?
That's true. That's true.
Forget New Yorker, man. I'm from Jersey, man. Do we know how to talk shit in Jersey? Actually,
You gotta.
Good point. Yeah, you gotta.
But I'm not. I played a lot of sports growing up for sure.
Yeah.
Just like at the, in the park or at the, in the Y, the JCC or, high school and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest with you, I wasn't that big of a trash talker. I never have been that big of a trash talker myself personally. But I always loved trash talk. I mean, I I grew up in the 90s. I grew up watching, Blood in the Garden Knicks, John Starks, guys going head to head with Reggie Miller and Michael Jordan. And, guys like Gary Payton always kind of interested me. Obviously I'm just talking basketball for a second, but,
sure.
But, it's like there's something really edgy and aggressive about trash talkers, but there's also something really, almost charismatic and charming about it too. Like they draw you in. There's a magnetism to it. And so I always was kind of into it. And the more I got on with my life, and obviously I never became a professional athlete or anything, but still kept going to the Y, playing in the park, living in Brooklyn for 12 years. Guys talk shit, and like there's a lot of different ways that you can talk shit. So me and my buddy Jim, give him a quick shout out. We were playing one-on-one one day, and he's literally the only guy I would ever talk crap to because I could get in his head.
Yeah,
it
works.
It worked. It let me in his head. And so we were just talking about it one day, and it was like, it's so interesting how like one guy can come into the YMCA and talk, and everybody wants to dap him up after the game and be on his team. And another guy comes in and everybody just wants to leave because he just brings this like toxic energy and he's a total asshole. Yeah. And so you could see that there's all these different varieties of trash talk, and there's never been a book about it. Literally nobody has ever written a book about trash talk.
You're right.
And when we think about it in the 90s, it kind of became like this phenomenon, like it became exoticized. Like the people who talked crap were somehow unsportsmanlike, or they were representing like a foreign culture of some kind. And when I say foreign, I literally just mean guys coming out of, Black American cultures. But like as like white sports editors, that was a foreign culture. And, so it was never really taken. Yeah. And, so it was never taken seriously. It was something that was dismissed. We saw it as culturally frivolous. But when you do that, like you're also ignoring everything that's actually happening beneath the surface. You're ignoring all the creativity and intellect and artistry that goes into it, but you're also ignoring all the psychology and like the actual, the psychology of performance that's happening under the surface. And if you want to be a good trash talker, if you want to be an effective trash talker, or you don't want to be like an easy target, you got to know how this stuff actually works. So I wanted to write this book, to like really give trash talk its due.
To your point, I love what you're saying about it because it makes so much sense. Like growing up watching the NFL and the NBA and things like that, like, you remember when Joe Horn went into the thing and pulled the phone out and made the call and stuff? Why don't they let them just do that?
Yeah.
We're
We
men.
love it. We eat
We're
it
men.
up. We love it. Like, nobody, what, you're talking to another grown man. We're not, it's not like personal. It's just business.
I totally agree with you. And that's where we get into some of these, like, you know, these culture clashes in some ways, right? Like the things that we might think of as sportsmanlike coming out of one culture are unsportsmanlike in another culture, right? The idea of like hyping yourself up, being celebratory, these kinds of things that can be very, you know, almost cultural imperatives. Like, you know, and I you know, to give, you know, to using the example of Joe Horn and other guys that come out of traditions, you know, Black oral traditions like the Dozens or Toasts, like, you know, Black folks in the United States for a long, you know, like nobody's giving these guys their due. So why wouldn't you want to celebrate yourself when you have something to celebrate? Like, why wouldn't you want to announce your presence and say, here I am and here's who I am, right? But then because that's sort of, you know, that's misconstrued by sports leagues, by fellow athletes, by officials on the field, it becomes penalized behavior. And when it becomes penalized, then we sort of beyond that start to see it as punishment worthy too, right? Then value is ascribed to it. So absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more, because you know what? Joe Horn pulls out the phone. He's saying, yeah, man, I just did this to you. Now, what are you going to do about it? And what's competition if not raising the stakes in that way? And that's what trash talk is.
Yeah, and also on top of that, to your point, it's like you're playing a game and the crowd's electric. They're going crazy for what you're doing. I'm electric too. Like, I can't help but to be electric.
Yeah. I mean, you're trying to draw people. You're trying to draw viewers. I mean,
totally. Yeah. Well, I mean, why do you want this kind of like patrician, you know, like everybody be very proper and, you know, shake hands during the game? No, man, F that. Like, we're competing here. So let's really compete. Like, you know, there's going to be a winner and a loser. And at the end of the day, yeah, it can be all respect. But like, there is also respect in going at me as hard as you possibly can, and me respecting you by going at you as hard as I possibly can too.
That's why to bring this all back to boxing and fight sports, they allow it. And then it still ends in a hug, right? Every time. Yeah. When have you seen two fighters not end in a hug?
Yeah.
Because you earn that respect over the course of the fight, of course.
And you know, and then you talk about certain environments. I mean, the prim and proper crowd, you know, you think of those people sitting there watching Wimbledon, but then you get a guy like John McEnroe who's smashing his tennis racket all over the place, you know?
Yeah.
We love him.
Yeah. Well, lights up the crowd, but he's also lighting himself up. And there's actually, again, he's like using the psychology of performance that trash talk speaks to get himself up to into what's, I'll use some nerdy science here, but like into what's known as his optimal zone of functioning. Like this is where he needs to be at his best. And so, of course, like, why would you want a guy competing on Wimbledon or the world stage not to be at his best? Like, whatever it takes to get there, who do you need to be your best? Be that person. I mean, forget even McEnroe. We can go more present day. We can go last week. You know, Novak Djokovic did you see it down in the Australian Open? Yep. He started getting into it with a guy in the crowd. He was saying, come on down here, man. Like, bring it. Let's go. And he said after the fact, he said, I've got so much trash talk in my own head. Right. Yeah. He's saying it like he is talking shit to himself because he needs that tension to get himself up, to amp himself up, to get into that proper zone. And when I say the zone of optimal functioning, I'm literally talking about like the stress and anxiety in your body, like what is happening in your internal states so that you can actually be at your best. And Djokovic, you don't like, you look at that and like as an outsider, as a casual sports fan, you might say to yourself, I'm not saying y'all or me would, or would do this, but it's like, you would think, man, he's getting himself distracted. Like, what is he doing? Like, this is not at all what he should be doing. But he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows that I'm not playing my best. So let me get into something with someone. Let me create this kind of tension. Let me amp myself up. Let me get to that McEnroe level so I can be where I actually need to be. Because otherwise, that's when I might lose.
Now, do you feel like with the advent of technology and social media being so prevalent and everybody's so worried in this culture about obviously being politically correct and the whole cyberbullying thing, and we're really watching what we say, do you think that's watered down trash talking in sports a little bit and made people more mindful of it, or do you think guys who need it or should be doing it?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to ask the question, I think, because it's I don't think that like it's those particular cultural, factors that have had that big of an effect on trash talk. But I do think you're right that modernity is important. Yeah. So I think a couple things here. One is I do think that athletic trash talk is a little bit more friendly for the most part, not entirely, but than it was in the days when guys were spiking each other in baseball and Larry Bird and Dr. J were exchanging blows on the court. And I think there's less animosity in between professional athletes. But I think that has to do with things like there's increased player turnover with free agency. There's more money. There's more money in leagues. So guys don't want to get suspended. They don't want to, they don't want to lose their spot. They have more to lose. When you have more to lose, you're going to be a little bit more cautious. And yeah, so in basketball, to give that as an example again, it's like you think about AAU, right? It's like forget about even getting to the league. These guys have been playing together since they were 8 years old. So it's like you don't have that animosity that's going to, I think, lead to that kind of that level of trash talk where guys would literally say, right? They would say, "I want to hate my opponent." Right. I want, like Larry Bird didn't want to meet a guy because he's like, I want to hate the guy so that I can I can be vicious with him.
So now, we talked about because this is a boxing show. I've traced it back to who I think really started to make it personal in a particular sport, that we talk about most on here. I would have to point back to the first guy that really made it personal. To me, felt like Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, well, although I would say that there were personal issues involved with Jack Johnson well before him, right? Because because even though like he was talking, he was talking trash in the ring to Tommy Burns. He was talking trash to the crowd, the white crowd that was at the fights, right? Yeah. But I agree with you. I agree with you completely that Muhammad Ali was the one who took trash talk, and specifically this kind of like this trash talk that was influenced by the black oral traditions like the dozens that came up through the playgrounds that like became the seeds of hip hop and what we now think of as like very rap poetic battles. What we now think of as like modern American trash talk. Ali is the first one to take those kind of threads and weave them together on as big of a platform as he had, and a national and global platform, and with on TV cameras blasting him all over the place. Like nobody was doing that before Ali, and he took it to places that no one went before him. And he was also showing us all the various ways you can use it. Right? He showed us how to be a showman. He showed us how to earn a fight that a lot of people thought he didn't deserve. Right. He showed us how to hype up a match, right, and to sell tickets and talk folks into the arena. But then he would use it to self-motivate. He would use it to worm his way into guys' heads to make them emotional, or to get them, to adopt a game plan, or to adopt a fighting strategy within the actual match that was against their game plan. But also, I mean, just look at the Rumble in the Jungle, man. Just is that all you got, George? I mean, He stole Foreman's heart, and that was trash talk because he was literally telling him, whatever you're doing is not enough.
And I love that you say that, because like, and shout out my black homies, because like coming up with them is like, you learn that, like they bring that out of you. You know what I mean? That trash talk, that, you know what I mean? You gotta be able to not only trash talk, but take trash talk and not get like hurt about it. You know what I mean? Like there's like a certain level of like,
I think when you come up in a trash talk tradition of any kind, and to be clear, like trash talk is something that is not like a modern American invention. It did not come out of Black American communities. It's something that has existed throughout human history, across culture, geography, and time. So, but but it can take on different, it takes on different flavors in different places, which is why we can sometimes like misunderstand it or not recognize it. But yeah, exactly what you're saying is that when you grow up in a trash talk tradition, regardless of which one it is, there's actually a great one on in the Faroe Islands, which is like a Viking culture, and they have a tradition. It's called, I'm gonna butcher the name. It's like Duga e Taka or something, but it basically means like giving it and taking it, right? And that's the whole thing, is like you have to learn to take it. And it's like what we mean by taking it doesn't mean that like, oh, nothing hurts me. It doesn't mean that, like if like whatever, like I can just knock you out if you talk some shit. It's understanding the game, the psychological, the mental game that's being played. Like, what are you really saying to me? Like, because if it's a bunch of friends talking mess to each other, it's like you're not really trying to hurt me, right? It's like, so how do I counter that? How do I come back at you with it? And you have to learn then, therefore, how to control your response. And that's the key with trash talk, is understanding how to control your response.
Well, what I wanted to say before though was, forgive me for not being into the book yet, but I'm on my way. I'm 4% on the audio book, so I'm working my way.
Hey man,
and kudos to you for narrating your own audiobook. We always love self-narration.
We love it. And hey, I go back to work tomorrow, so it's gonna probably get killed in the next 2 days. But I will say this, forgive me for not knowing and already being through the book, but I'm curious of all this trash talk that we're talking about. Let's just put us in a bar setting, and we're two guys that are really ready to go to battle for real. Trash talk there, like how do you feel about it? What's your thoughts there?
Is it gasoline on a fire? I mean, or
absolutely. Oh, there's no question. And it's because trash talk, and it's like, so you can make I'll make the comparison again to the dozens, right? The sort of game of traded insults that, that's endemic to the black community. And the reason why I say that is because there was a great quote by the writer Zora Neale Hurston when she was describing the dozens, and she called it a risky pleasure. And that's because this is a double-edged sword, man, and it can always go one of two ways. Another scholar, a scholar of the dozen, said it can be used to amuse or abuse, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And it's just like, and like it can be used just as easily to provoke a fight as it can be used as a proxy for a fight, right? Instead of a fight. And so it's like, and sometimes you can control that. Like if me and you, we want to get into it, and I know you're trying to get into it and I want to get into it, we're going to get into it. Right. But if I'm just messing around with you, but you don't know me necessarily, we don't have that, we don't have that kind of rapport, or like you're not digging the vibes that I'm giving off, and like you're taking it the wrong way. It doesn't matter how I meant it, right? How are you taking it?
Right.
So it's always a risky pleasure in that way, because like trash talk is inherently violent. Just as like there's like joking about someone, it's inherently a violation of some kind. You're trying, even if you're kidding around, you're still offending someone in some ways. And trash talk's the same thing. I'm talking shit about you, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I gotta, Rafi, I gotta shout myself out right here real quick, because you said, it was funny because you said it like it was so pertinent, because you said it could either be the fuel to the fire or the proxy to it could be one or the other. And it actually just recently worked out in my personal life that it was the proxy to the fight, because I had a situation, I won't get into it too heavily, but there was like a family matter, and a guy, that just came into my family, boyfriend, girlfriend type deal, made some very weird threats and stuff. So I kind of just handled it, went outside and was like, what's up, dude? You trying to do this? Like the trash talk deal. And he didn't want to do it.
That's it.
Very effective tool. And I got a friend that I grew up with who was about the same age as me, who really always stressed how many fights it actually kept him out of being good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I spoke to a guy, this particular line I don't think was in the book, but I was talking to a guy, actually it might have been in a different context. Regardless, I was talking to a guy, insult comedian, who grew up playing a lot of ice hockey. He was a big guy on the ice, so a lot of guys were always, trying to go at him, and he always came with the fodder, and the fuel. He did his research, so he could always, whatever if you said something at him, he always knew what he was going to say back. But he said, man, like it's like if you win the fight with words, you don't even have to fight physically.
Right.
And that's right. And it's like, is that like a complete universal rule? Of course not, right? Because it's like sometimes you embarrass that one guy and he just doesn't know how to handle it, and he's just going to come out.
Or sometimes he pounds your face in.
Or what about, this is something too that this just cropped into my head of what you just said. But like, what about, remember when Kobe Bryant, remember he learned Spanish in order to talk trash to Luis Scola.
I talked to Luis Scola about that, actually.
Did you?
It's not in the book, but I talked to him about it.
That's great.
Yeah. I said, what was it like for, to be, because so what happened was, so people have probably seen the clips. They've gone around a bunch of times, but during the Olympics, right? And Kobe's talking some shit to Luis Scola in Spanish, and Luis Scola says back to him, "Talk to me in English. Your Spanish is no good." And and then Kobe goes off on him, as Kobe is going to do, because he knows how to use this stuff for his performance. And anyway, Luis Scola said he's like, I was so embarrassed because Kobe, not only did he kick my ass, he's like, but also his Spanish was very good.
And something else. While we're on the Kobe Bryant question, I don't know if you've seen this one or know about this one, but I remember watching this one live. Again, in the FIBA World Cup, he was playing Pau Gasol for Spain, and he ran him right through the chest. And threw him on the ground as if to say, we're teammates, yes, on the Lakers, but we ain't now.
Yeah. I saw that too. And so, look at it at like the most fundamental level. And trash talk, like I hate to say like, oh, it can be nonverbal trash talk, but of course there can be, and I talk about some of it too. But like you want to kind of like, because then before everything is trash talk. But I think that absolutely was a form of Kobe talking trash, and it's because at the most basic level, what trash talk does is it raises the psychological stakes of competition. You're saying, I'm putting more on the line. Are you gonna come hang with me here? Right. And so what he was saying to Powell, right, is like, man, I'm coming at your chest, literally. And like, are you gonna bring that same intensity? Can you match this? Or are you gonna hesitate? Are you gonna be a little bit more, are you not like, do you not want all this smoke? Do you not want all the bite? Because like I'm coming for you.
And of course, one of the points you made though earlier was about using it as a marketing tool. And of course, in the sport that we cover, boxing, it's all about selling fights. We want people to buy pay-per-views or whatever. So from a fiscal standpoint, it's very beneficial to athletes.
It can be, and especially to bring the attention. I think it depends on the athlete, right? Because it's like, in the 1990s, the guys who were like dubbed, trash talkers like Gary Payton and those guys, they lost a lot of marketing opportunities, but that's because of like the way that we were thinking about trash talk culturally at the time. But to think about like the example in a good example in combat sports in MMA in this case is Chael Sonnen, right? So like, are you familiar with him?
Master of the trash
and
talk.
so and like he was a nobody. He wasn't even on the undercard. He was on the prelims fighting, right? And he said to himself, I talked to him for the book. I ended up not being able to use a lot of this particular conversation, but like it was a very conscious decision. He's like, here I am jerking the curtain, like fighting the number 2 guy in my weight class because the other guy's not marketing this thing.
Right.
And so he decided, he's like, I'm going to be polishing these quotes. I'm going to be coming out, just like spitting fire, spitting gems. And the things he said were incredible.
Incredible.
He practiced them.
Yeah. And especially when he's going up against somebody like a Tito Ortiz, who really just could not seem to get a grasp on trash talk.
I seriously love to this day that him and Vanderlei Silva, and he's like, I can't let you get close.
That's
so funny.
My favorite. So I watched this. Watching that. The press conference before it was. I think it was their fight in like 2017 or something with Tito Ortiz, and he had this line. Chael had this line where Tito said something like, you don't deserve the fights you've gotten. You've talked your way into all these fights.
Your mouth, your mouth has gotten you in all your big fights. Yeah.
And Chael says the only person I know who's gotten everything with their mouth is your ex-wife. Referring to Jenna Jameson.
Yeah.
And Tito says back to her, he's like, first of all, we were never married.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, if you're fact checking trash talk, you're missing the point here, man. Like
you've got nothing in the tank. Yeah.
And then right at that point, Tito sort of caught himself because I think he realized he was falling into this rhetorical trap that was getting him nowhere. Yeah. And he just goes, you're a fucking punk, or whatever. Yeah. And Chael just smiles and does this.
Yeah. I mean,
a year later, he was main carding against Anderson Silva. It's like insane.
So how does a guy know? I'll start by saying this. Obviously, we hear a lot of times, though. Certainly we hear or we have heard in the past where people say, it's not the guy who's barking a lot. You got to watch out for the quiet ones.
I mean, that's true too. I think. I mean, and I don't think it's like nothing is a perfect universal rule, right? It's but I think there's a kind of truth to it in the sense that it's like there are guys who can talk out of insecurity, right?
Yeah.
Talk out of trying to get you down to their level, talking because trash talk is a kind of test, right? And even if you're bluffing, you still got to call my bluff. And if I'm talking too tough for you and you're not going to call that bluff, if I'm going to make you emotional, if I'm going to make you a little bit scared, then maybe I will beat you, even if you're better than me. So there is something to that about talking from insecurity that does happen. But there's also plenty of guys who are like, man, I'm the best. I know I'm the best. And I'm going to tell you I'm the best, right? I mean, Muhammad Ali, Conor McGregor in his prime. Like these guys, I do not think these guys were talking out of insecurity in any way whatsoever.
Right. It is their edge. Like we had the boxer James Toney on here. And
Did you get to the quote from James Toney in my book yet?
Yes. But James Toney, to echo what you said though, is one of those guys and Benji's can tell you this, when he was on here, he will not backpedal. In his mind, even though he had 77 wins and 10 losses, nobody really beat him. He's the greatest of all time, and you can't tell him otherwise. But I think that's the edge that he needs.
I love that, and that's also exactly the kind of twisted logic that a great trash talker needs. Because it's like even when I lose, I actually won. I just got to tell you why I won and how I won.
Right.
But to the question about beware the quiet ones, there is something to that too.
Yeah.
Because it's like. I was talking to David Diamante about this early on, when I began my reporting, and he was telling me and he brought up this exact point, and he was like, "Man, just look at Triple G, he's going to sit there and say, okay, we're going to fight, and I'm going to, I mean, Khabib in MMA too. Although I think Khabib got, I think some of the fact that we think about him as being quiet and all this is just a little bit of the language barrier. Because when you go back and you watch some of those press conferences, Khabib has he's got a little bit of wiry sort of, vibrating energy to him too.
It's brimming under there.
It is. I don't think he's a perfectly calm guy.
No.
But the guy who's because it speaks to a kind of that. That's it's Triple G, you're Tim Duncan, right? These guys who are I know what I need. And I think that might also just speak to, frankly, you can go back to that model that it's called the IZOF, the individual zones of optimal functioning, right? So it's knowing where you need to be at your best. Maybe the guy like Triple G is I need to be kind of calm. I need to have a clear mind,
right?
And that's where I'm going to perform at my best. Because if I get myself worked up, my attention will get too narrow, maybe, or I'm going to miss certain cues. So. Right. So I think there could be something to that too. But I think the key though is figuring out where is someone's talk coming from? Are they talking because they need it? Are they talking because they're trying to get down to their level?
Right.
Are they where is it coming from? And because that can inform your own response to it, right? Is the best thing just to ignore it and dismiss it? Is there actually should you call their bluff because they're actually talking out of major insecurity?
Right.
So, but understanding what are they trying to get out of this, and importantly, where do I need to be? Because that's the first thing. Is what do I need for my own performance, and how can I get there?
Right. Go ahead, Benji's. I know you're poised to do something.
No, I mean, I want to ask him something off topic.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking off topic. I'm curious because you grew up like Jersey, New York. If you walk into a bodega right now, bodega deli.
Yeah.
What's your order?
Man, it depends on the time of day it is and how much I had to drink. But I always I would go for a turkey sandwich. Probably. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, just turkey sandwich, Swiss cheese, some of that shredded lettuce, onions. I'd probably do some mayo and oil and vinegar, a little salt and pepper on top. Probably throw in some pickles.
Pickles.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Key. Now, do you think that trash talk, can go too far? Like, obviously, a lot of people made a big deal back in the 70s with, okay, Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali are going back a little bit, but then all of a sudden it's, you're calling Joe Frazier a gorilla. You called it Uncle Tom. Are all bets off and all rules are off, or can people take it too far and instead of becoming confident, it becomes that cockiness, that arrogance that turns people off?
Well, it's a really hard question, and it's a really thorny question, because I think this is where we start talking about the line, right? And like, what's the line? What's over the line? And I have a whole section of the book called "The Problem with the Line." It's literally, and there's a couple problems with the line. The first is that nobody's line is the same as somebody else's line, right?
Right.
So it's like the thing that I'm going to be offended by is not the thing that you're going to be offended by. Like Muhammad Ali, was not trying to hurt Joe Frazier's feelings. Like, not really. I mean, maybe like within the context of the fight, he was trying to sell a fight.
Right.
But Frazier literally said to him at one point, why are you doing this to me? Like, why are you saying these things?
Right.
And he was like, it's just competition, but it wasn't for Frazier. So you don't, regardless of how you intend it, you don't know how someone else is going to hear it. And that's one of and Frazier took that grudge with him till the end of his days, man.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember from boxing a couple years back, he fought De La Hoya, he fought a bunch of guys, Ricardo Mayorga, who a lot of his trash talk we didn't understand because he spoke exclusively in Spanish, but it was interpreted. It was very, when he had to fight with Sugar Shane Mosley, nobody was safe. He's dragging children in, he's dragging wives in, he's getting very, very personal though. So you do agree that there can be a line that can be crossed.
Oh, no question. I personally agree, but that's kind of my point, is that even if we can all agree that there is a line of some kind, who's stopping him?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Who's making this line? Yeah. And where is it?
What line? What line? Like,
right.
And even if we all say that, someone like him, his whole point would be like, I want to cross the line.
Right. It's my thing. Yeah.
That's what I'm going for. I want to make you mad. I want to get you so mad that you're going to come charging at me with your chit out like this.
Right.
So that's one problem. But then it's like, what we do, I mean, it's a question of recourse, right? When we talk about what line, what is the recourse for crossing the line? Like, is there some penalty of some kind? Who is actually blowing the whistle when that happens? And we see it a little bit more, that there are leagues, around globally in high school and whatever, who will like kick out a fan for ban them for 5 years for like saying something racist or homophobic or whatever. I think it was I just saw some headline yesterday on ESPN about how they were talking about, and I think it was in European soccer, that they were going to start banning fans, if they start, if I forget if it was something like race, if it was racist or homophobia, probably both, right? But that's like, but what is the recourse? If there's not a recourse, then it's just up to us to decide like where this line is, and then it's about what are you willing to say, right?
Right.
Like, what kind of person are you willing to be? But like, that's on you.
I'm curious about this too, because obviously you said you grew up in the 90s and stuff, and I was born in 94, so like I grew up in the early 2000s. You know what I mean? 50 Cent was my first guy I ever YouTube. Like, so my question to you is, you said like racist or homophobic, but like sometimes back in the day, and forgive me for this because I'm just gonna say the word because we grew up doing this. Like, if you just did something dumb or stupid to be like, you're gay. Or like, that was just like kind of a thing we just said. It wasn't homophobic. It wasn't gay.
It was the context.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. And it's like language changes over time, and our understanding and acceptance of language changes over time, right? Like the things that were said on the baseball fields, towards Black and Italian and Jewish players in the 1940s and 50s are obviously things that are unacceptable now, and nobody would say, and hopefully nobody would say. Yeah. So it's like there is a little bit of I wouldn't. It's not that you give grip, but like, yeah, man. I grew up saying, in high school, everything was gay. Of course, like that's what. Yeah. But like, it is homophobic. We just didn't think about it as homophobic, right?
That's it wasn't in that context.
It's that we didn't know any better, or it's but again, like culture evolves, language evolves with it, and our understandings and values evolve. So it's like, it's not about. It's not, again, I don't think we have to. So a lot of this stuff in a lot of these leagues or, places, they we're devolving. We're not as as decent as we used to be or whatever. But like, the truth is, none of us are as good. We're ever as good as we thought we were. And so a better question, a better consideration is, who do we want to be? And how can we create the context for that now? To me, that's a more important question. Not that how do we get back to what was? Because what was never what we really thought it was anyway. Right. But what are the values we can aspire to? What are the sort of, and I'm not saying I want trash talk, I want shit talk, but it's but there's ways to talk trash that, there's things you say that can have, pretty big, sizable, and I'm not even just talking about sports here. Talk about politicians, talk about in any context, the things we say matter. Right. And because people hear the things we say, norms can be shifted, things that we then view as acceptable as being said based on what other people are saying. So it's I think those are important conversations. That's kind of like the last chapter of my book is titled A Legit Societal Conversation.
Yeah.
It's literally about this. It's just what are the things we're willing to accept from ourselves, and even more importantly, what are the things that we want to accept from one another, or we should? Because there are consequences that go beyond an individual person's integrity.
I was very happy 2 minutes into this interview because you had already brought up John Starks, one of my favorite all-time New York Knicks.
Hell yeah,
but do you think sometimes though, obviously Starks was a guy came from the CBA, was certainly not a high draft pick or a guy that was really picked, to make it. The amount of success he achieved was pretty incredible, and he did have a nice run of some pretty productive seasons. But do you think sometimes, when you engage in that banter, that sometimes it hurts how you're viewed as an athlete because you get that moniker, that label of he's a trash talker. You know what I mean? Yeah. And maybe your actual physical ability gets outshined by that label.
I think that was definitely the case for a lot of guys in the 90s. Yeah. I think it's I think as trash talk has become more culturally accepted, and which is always funny because even when we would when we'd have that kind of stigma about trash talkers, we would still market the leagues with trash talk. So it was very, kind of speaking out of both sides of our mouths, very hypocritical.
Right. Like a guy that comes to mind for me is a guy like Dennis Rodman. You're not going to give him that credit of being one of, if not the greatest rebounder of all time. You're going to think he was the guy with the crazy colored hair that started a lot of fights and was always yapping on the court.
Right. And that's honestly what I hope, a book like this and conversations like this can do is help us appreciate the fact that guys that talk trash are actually just playing mental game as well as a physical game, right? It shouldn't detract from them as competitors. It just complicates it, and in good way. It enriches them as competitors. So I do think that there is some of that. I think with Starks, so Starks played like a maniac, and he played like a maniac because he felt like he needed to be on that edge, at the top of his threshold, his zone of functioning, and then sometimes just go over it because he knew that he was right on the edge of being in the league and not. He knew that.
Right.
And so I think unfortunately for him, unfortunately for me as a Knicks fan, and for you as a Knicks fan, that there would be many times when that would hurt him and hurt the team. you know, when he would headbutt Reggie Miller, when he would just do some dumb shit on the floor.
Yeah.
And I talked to him about it. I asked him about it, and he said, yeah, I knew that was the case, but like there were some games where I just felt like to be on the floor, I needed to just let go of all, like just throw caution to the wind and just play out of control, because that's the only way I can go toe to toe with these guys.
And by the way, let's also throw John Starks out there though for the greatest in-game dunk of all time, going left-handed baseline. I mean, come on.
Oh man, I should have worn that T-shirt tonight. I actually got a T-shirt of that printed, that dunk.
Oh, the greatest in-game dunk.
I just need to say, wearing the hat right now, I'm hurt. I just was in the background watching us take the L. 27-24. The kicker missed a field goal that should have tied it. But in my mind, I can deal with it because the team did enough to get there, and I knew the kicker wasn't good. He hasn't been good, and they should have moved him and got rid of him, but they didn't.
I was going to ask you about your jersey, man. Well, I was going to say, you know, it's nice of you to hang out with us instead of watching the game, but maybe it was better. For you.
I had to turn it on, Rafi. I couldn't. Yeah. I couldn't.
Oh, no, I hear you, man. No doubt. No doubt.
I feel like I've done a lot of suffering.
I usually get the updates that ding on my phone at the top, but I hadn't gotten one in a while, so I'm like, I gotta go and look real quick.
It kind of has become symptomatic though of New York sports though. Like, you know, I'm fortunate enough where, like, you know, the New York Giants, I'm a Giants fan, but they didn't have a great season. But I've got to see them win Super Bowls in my lifetime. Some people don't even get that. You know, I mean.
No, man. I mean, I was born in '83, and I've already got some, you know, enough Super Bowls to last me for however long as a Giants fan.
Now, if you start talking about my Mets, that's a little different story.
Even wearing a Bills jersey, though, I gotta say, if the Giants or the Jets were in the Super Bowl, or if the Sabres are in the World Cup, or the Stanley Cup, or, you know what I mean, whatever, I'm rooting for that New York team. You know what I mean? I want that New York team to win.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I feel like people don't give that grace. You know, I feel like Mets fans don't give that grace to us Yankee fans, which I understand.
We don't. We don't.
Yeah. but you guys are winners.
Not lately. But I pull for the Mets, man. Yeah, I remember 2015. I was out reporting my first book, and when they were going against KC, and I spent some time in KC that year, and they were an electric team. But I still deep down wanted the Mets to win.
Yeah. And of course, the '86 Mets were a team that you can certainly appreciate because they would fit the mold of this book. A lot of swagger, a lot of yapping them out, you know,
a lot of nobody believes in us type stuff, you know, or just that kind of, you know, just that like us against the world mentality.
Yeah. Actually, I'm curious what you think about this as far as like not necessarily trash talk because it got physical, but like just as a 7-game series wears on and things happen, you know, a guy slides in the third base, pops up, and Ray Knight punches him in the fucking face. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. The best way to answer that is with a quote that Sean Avery gave me, and he was specifically talking about how he tried to get under the skin of Ilya Kovalchuk over the course.
And that's an enforcer. Sean Avery's a legitimate enforcer too.
He's a pest, just a pest. Yeah. Like, and so what he said is that when you're playing a 7-game series, he's like, it's like a wound that just won't fucking heal. Like you just keep, you know, like scratching that. You scratch that scab off again and again and again. So I think like you're playing the same team 7 games in a row, and someone gets under your skin just a little bit in game 1, that can grow over the course of that series.
Now, I saw some people on Amazon who were reviewing your book, and I don't know if this comes from your book or if this was someone's opinion in one of the reviews. All great reviews, by the way, on there. But people
please review the book.
Yeah, I will. I will for sure. And I got to say though, there were people on there that said, and again, I don't know if this came from something you put in the book, but the trash talking. How far back do we trace trash talking? Someone said biblical times.
Biblical times, absolutely. We can trace trash talk to biblical times and the Homeric poems of ancient, you know, and through ancient Greece. You know, it's David literally talked trash to Goliath, like literally in the Bible.
Yes. Yeah.
Said, I will strike you down and cut off your head. Like that is trash talk, man.
It's a G move. That's a G move by David.
And he knew what he was doing because he was baiting him to come in closer so he could get him with the shepherd sling. Yeah. And he did. So yeah, I mean, that's literally when I say that trash talk goes back, that it's not a modern tradition. Like, this is the language of competition. This is how we talk to each other. This is how we negotiate those moments of going head to head. It's how we can raise the stakes. It goes back to the Bible. It goes back to the Homeric poems. You can see it in the invective poets of Greece and Roman times. There's pre-Islamic Arabic courts where they would have these poetic insult contests. I'm telling you, it's throughout time and across the world. This is huge. This is part of who we are as people.
Well, you have to think too. I mean, in the Roman times, they were fighting to the death for people to watch, to the literal death.
Right, like, what's a little talking at that point, right? I mean,
in Roman times there was more. The politicians that would talk, that were talking trash, and they were doing it in ways to try to, one of the functions of trash talk is you can create sort of tribal identity, right? Like if I talk, it's like you think about it like a coach with bulletin board material. Like, again, it's like can you believe what they said about us? Nobody believes in us. It's an us versus them. And so you can understand why politicians would want to use that kind of language, because it creates the sense of identity. And so Roman politicians would use that.
Well, and to really speak to that, it's still the same way. I mean, because we got our teams and we all rally behind them, and it's usually a state-based,
Absolutely.
What I mean?
Absolutely.
Like our state versus them.
And regardless of where you stand politically, do you feel like when we have a guy in office, like Donald Trump, a polarizing guy, but who is very brash, who flies to other countries and seems to put world leaders on notice, man, that we are back in the driver's seat, man. We're perceived as more powerful. It seems like right now, regardless of how you voted, political stance or whatever, but we do seem a little bit like weaker and more susceptible right now. Do you think, how vital do you think trash talk and giving off that aura of being, the most superpower country in the world, how big of it does it play in politics? It's interesting you brought politics up.
Yeah, well, I think that's a difficult question to answer, in the sense that, like, I don't know what those, I don't know what conversations behind closed doors of, foreign diplomats and leaders are. I think that, let me say this. Actually, this might be the way to say it. One of the best ways to sort of like put people, I'm going to talk them in the athletic context, to put people like on their heels or a little bit wary, is you be the crazy person, right? This is Muhammad Ali versus Sonny Liston, right? This is like, Brian Cox, who y'all would be familiar with in Buffalo because they hated Brian Cox. And, when you're the crazy guy, like, that's everyone's a little bit like, you go a little light with the crazy guy. And I think that there's probably something to be said for, in certain situations, if you want to use that strategically. But here's what I would also say, though, is that trash talk, as we said from the beginning, is a double-edged sword. And so I think that there is a question as far as how strategically politicians in general might be using trash talk. Are they using it for their own personal gain? Are they using it for political gain, for political standing? And what is the cost of that? And the reason I say that is, so I'll give the example of Donald Trump, not in terms of the I'm thinking domestically here for a second, right? Okay. So when you think about any politician, and this isn't just Donald Trump, but like Donald Trump certainly does this, when you say it's like it's us against them, and when the them is just like other fellow citizens, and like we're creating this idea where it's like we're not just like rivals pushing towards the same greater good, but actual like existential enemies, like trying to drive in opposite directions. Like I think that can be really dangerous, because so there's a concept in sports psychology called social facilitation, the very first ever sports psychology experiment. And what is discovered is that a person can basically run faster on a track when someone's running next to them than when running by themselves. And what the meaning of that experiment, and the meaning of actually the Latin root of of competition, is together we strive. It means that you're going to push me further than I can go on my own. That doesn't mean that like we have to agree on stuff, but like to me, and this is like Pollyanna-ish and like idealism and whatever, but like to me, politicians who disagree should be pushing in the same direction. You're right, saying like we all want a great country. We might disagree about how to get there, so let's hash it out on that. But but because there is actual benefit, there is real benefit to saying they're cheating. They're they're acting unethically. They're saying shit about us, and because what that does is it reinforces the identity of the in group, and it makes people bond to you even more. It makes them love you even more. So there's a real benefit to that. But the downside of that is like now I'm going to see these other people, my neighbors potentially, as like actual enemies, people who are like. And so I think that's why I hesitate to answer a question. Because it's like I can see the efficacy of it and the way you use it. But I think when we start talking about like real world like fallout from it, like that goes beyond the lines, it's worth thinking about like not only how we're using it, but what's the cost.
Right. And I do like that you brought up the crazy man routine, because I've read a really good book back in the day by a guy named Peyton Quinn, and it was called The Bouncer's Guide to Barroom Brawling. And he literally said, though, that he had been at parties and out at bars before, and putting on the crazy man persona is another one of those things, a lot like puffing out your chest and upping the ante, as you talk about, and getting a guy to back off. He would just start saying random things, looking off and weird posturing and gesturing. And people would kind of be like, whoa, what the fuck is wrong with this dude?
Exactly. Exactly.
And it works. So if I threw out at you, and it doesn't just got to be sports guys, your Mount Rushmore of trash talkers.
Yeah.
In any realm, who comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's they'll be all sports probably for me, but it's like Muhammad Ali's obviously on there. There's no getting around that.
Yeah.
Like if we wanted to put on, I've been asked this question before, but every time someone asked it to me, and actually only one time before, but after they asked me, I was like, shit, I didn't like that Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. Think it through this time.
Well, because it's like there's so many ways to do it. Like on one hand, I almost want to do it like different types of trash talkers and like the best of each, right? Like you want like the best pest. Like is that Reggie Miller? Is that Sean Avery? Like, but I feel like you got to put on Ali. I feel like you got to put on Gary Payton, because Gary Payton kind of like brought trash talk
legendary
to the world, Then I kind of would say someone like either a Larry Bird or a Satchel Paige. And the reason why, like, nobody really thinks about Satchel Paige as being a trash talker, but he would do the same thing that Larry Bird would do, which is tell you exactly what he was going to do before he did it to you. And
which is what Tyson Fury did in his 2 fights against Wilder, gave away the game plan and then went out and did it.
There you go. Tyson Fury, by the way, is like, he's right on the edge of the Rushmore, Rushmore status too. He really is. But Conor McGregor's right up there.
Who the fuck is that guy?
So let's go, but Reggie Miller could also be in this.
Definitely. New York Knicks fans know him well. Yeah.
Let's go Ali, let's go Peyton, let's go Reggie Miller, and let's go Conor McGregor.
Lock it in. Lock it in right there, man. And then whoever the hell was inventing it back in the day has got to be the guy that's even above the Mount Rushmore. Who is maybe David, maybe Jesus. Who knows?
David.
David.
Too, why the Reggie pick is a good one too, because he was literally like talking shit on the sideline and like hitting a shot at the same time.
Yeah. And he's also one of those guys. He's also one of those guys that falls under amazing trash talker and pest. He's kind of dual purpose.
Yes. No, he was, and as a Knicks fan, you understand just like
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll always remember 9 points in 8 seconds.
Patrick Beverly is a shout out for NBA.
Yeah. Unsung heroes. Yeah.
Absolutely. The thing with Reggie is that like I hated playing against the Knicks playing against MJ because I knew they were going to lose.
That was a given,
But I hated Reggie. I didn't hate MJ. I hated playing MJ, but I hated Reggie Miller.
Right. It's a lot like Mets fans, like me being the Yankees being the crosstown rival, but I always looked at Jeter as somebody special. And if someone said, who's the guy you start and build a franchise around, he's my guy. Stayed steady with the same team, class act, no controversy outside of the clubhouse, just a stand-up solid guy.
Yeah. I mean, and he's a guy, like, he's not a trash talker, but I think he was one of those guys like MJ, like Tiger Woods, who could like use the things that other people said and like Reggie for fuel to dial himself in, to like, to really become hyper focused. And that just speaks to what kind of like mental strength that like you really need to either be a great trash talker or to withstand it.
Yeah. I know you brought him up before, but Duncan was like that too, I think.
Yeah.
A guy that just stored it away.
Yeah. I've got skills. I don't even need to engage in this. Yeah. I'm the big fundamental, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
And so if people want to check out the book, man, before we let you go, man, obviously I mentioned it's available on Amazon, all bookstores. Do bookstores even exist anymore? Everybody's reading that.
Yeah. Here it is.
There it is.
It exists in the real world.
Yep, you get a paper copy.
Yeah, the only book about destroying your rivals that isn't total garbage, because
love it.
Of course, you can't have a book about trash talk without having the book talk a little trash, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if the author wasn't doing some of it, I mean, what the hell good would it be, right? But this was fun, man. I mean, it was a real blast talking to you. I hope we can keep in touch and have you on again from time to time. Yeah.
This is awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you guys doing this. Appreciate you missing the Bills L, but
I technically didn't miss the L.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. I watched them. I was there to miss the field goal.
Yeah. Besides, who doesn't want to miss an L? You know what I mean?
I know it's true. It's true. Yeah. Miss me with that L. Absolutely.
Yeah. We really appreciate it, Rafi. It's been a real pleasure getting the chance to talk to you, man. I love this book. It's one of those books, especially with you narrating it, that in my collection that I'm sure I will revisit from time to time. And certainly kudos to self-narrating it. I'm big about the narrator thing because, and I think this is important for any authors out there that are going to do audiobooks. You got to be careful. I don't know how they choose who narrates it, but like I was going to go on there and buy a book about Freeway Ricky Ross, who was a huge drug trafficker, crazy Scarface type life. And you go on there to preview it, and it's some guy that sounds like he's about 75 years old reading it from his rocking chair. You know what I mean? Like no pizzazz, no nothing.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to write your story or write something that's near and dear to you, you should be saying it.
Yeah, I really wanted to do it. It was important to me, but because I wanted, because it felt like my words. But I'll tell you, man, it is hard. It's like physically one of the hardest things I've ever done. Like my throat, I don't want to start complaining about it, but like your throat is sore, and I don't mean like a sore throat like you have when you have a cold. I mean like literally the muscles in your neck are like sore.
Well, actually, to ask you one more question. Yeah. Like when you do something like that, how long, like what's the turnaround on that? Like how long do they expect you to take to be done with that?
So we like booked a week in a recording studio, right? Yeah. So we actually got it done in 4 days, but it's like, 4 like 8-hour days with, or was it 4? Maybe it was actually shorter than that. It was more like actually like 6 or 7 hour days. But with a couple breaks, you can basically go like an hour and a half before you're like, fuck it, man, I need some tea.
Yeah. I'm sick of the sound of my own voice.
I guess it's probably like each person that has their own thing or whatever. But I listened to a book about Sebastian Maniscalco, and he read his own book, and he said he was doing it from the comfort of his own home.
Oh wow! Well, maybe he might have had like a really good like audio setup from like podcasting,
right? Just because like of the stats and comedy.
Yeah.
And now for people that don't know, I don't want to just put shine on trash talk. You have any other books that you have out that you would like to shout out?
Oh, appreciate. Yeah, I have one other book I wrote. It's got another long subtitle. It's called The Arena: Inside the Tailgating, Ticket Scalping, Mascot Racing, Dubiously Funded and Possibly Haunted Monuments of American Sport. And that's all. It's a
mouthful.
It's all about American stadiums. I spent a year traveling around the country, going to different stadiums, and it's about.
That's why Ford Field's the worst.
I've been to Ford Field. It's actually no Ford Field. I haven't been to. I've been to Orchard Park. Yeah, I went to Orchard Park, and I went to the Silverdome too. I was thinking
They
Orchard Park for a second.
always say
Orchard Park is nice. I like Orchard Park.
Yeah, they always say that Ford Field's the worst. I've never been, but
no, I've never been. But they say that, I mean, the Silverdome. I went to the Silverdome after it was falling apart, like literally after like the roof was off. And they used to say that the smell of hot dogs would just like raise to the sides, like right underneath the dome, beautiful, and it would just smell like old boiled meat. And so, but that book's, it's all about like the subcultures. Like I hung out with ticket scalpers and grounds crews. It's like everything about stadiums except for the game itself.
I miss Shea Stadium. I know you feel that way about the old Yankee Stadium.
I do. I miss the old Yankee Stadium.
It's actually is that an audiobook form too?
You know what? There's not. You're gonna have to learn to read for that one.
Trash talk. You just got trash talk by a guy who wrote a trash talk book. I told you can't read and know in certain terms. I like that, man. That's a good way to end it, man. Listen, Rafi, we really appreciate this, man. This was a blast. I feel like we could chop it up here for hours, man.
Totally, man. No, I feel the same way, man. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, we appreciate you, man. And as soon as I put the episode up, probably sometime next week, I'll send you the link. Feel free to share it wherever, man.
I will. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Been fun, man.
Yeah, much love, man.
Yeah. Thank
likewise.
you.
Likewise.
Yep. Later. Good talk.
Yeah.
Good talkings with a real
I like that one a lot, dude. He had a lot to say and was really
don't try to look at us as a boxing podcast and think you're not dealing with a couple of scholarly guys here. We do read. That's a real author we just had on there. It just so happens that he wrote a book that's pertinent to our main topic on the show.
That other book, I could see myself enjoying that other book just as being a sports fan. You know what I mean? Just seeing that world of scalpers and the underworld of sports.
Yeah, but the thing that's nice is if you do buy that book, though, and the one reason that I would go back and get it because I liked him so much and would buy it in paper form, even though with my eye troubles, I try to stick to the audiobooks, is because like you can literally make the font like huge. Like if you want to turn the thing into 1,500 pages from 300, you can literally flip like every 20 words. You know what I mean? You can make them huge on your screen.
Right.
I don't think somebody like you would have to go that big or whatever, man. But, you can take away a lot of the strings. You can change like the font size. There is features down there at the bottom of it where like, you want each page to have less words on it, more words on it. Excuse you, Alexis Arguello. Yeah. So that was Rafi Kohan. Do go check out his book, Trash Talk. Amongst his other accomplishments, other than being a freelance author, he was served as deputy editor of the New York Observer. He's written for GQ. He's written for Men's Journal, Wall Street Journal, ESPN.com. He's got some credentials under his belt. He knows, just like us, he knows of which whereof he speaks.
Yep.
Yeah. He's an expert. He's an expert, at least on trash talking. He had me convinced, man. I mean, every point he answered concisely, man. I think we hit him with some good questions. And I think, obviously, he researches his topic in topics, a lot like the book about the stadiums. He's not afraid to get down there, man, and like mix in amongst the people, man, and really get in there and find like the little man. I find when you talk to the scalpers, you talk to the people that work at the stadium, that's where you get the real shit. That's where you get the real shit. You know what I mean? Like getting down on ground level, man, and really doing your homework in your research, man. That's Rafi Kohan. You can find the book wherever the fuck it is around your area that you buy books. If you got a brick and mortar Barnes and Noble, go there and buy it. If you got a Nook, go buy it. If you read books on your phone, as he said, the Arena didn't have an audio version, but Trash Talk, his newest book, does. He narrates it himself. Got a very pleasing narrating voice, and of course, he's reading his own material, which helps. He's committed to the process. He's committed to the, he researched it. It's a labor of love. So I think those books always turn out the best, man. So shout out to Rafi Kohan. Find him on Facebook. I'm sure he's out there. Just, Google him, RAFI KOHAN. Thanks for him doing that, man. Check us out on Facebook and like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on this channel if you're watching it right now for amazing new content. And I wanted to ask him if it counts as trash talk, if you're just a guy who just steps in a guy's face and says, what? I'm going to rattle off about 8 nicknames right now. And you shut a guy down there, man, because I may do just that.
And I got to shout out Gary Busey and say that I can go 15 seconds with anything.
Yeah. And I'm going to remind people as I puff out my chest, I'm going to say, do not ever think that you can step to reckless Rex Ruger, a.k.a.
I don't remember him.
Let's get the AKAs out of the way. AKA Reckless Rex Ruger, AKA The Wrecker, AKA Sparky, AKA Spiggy Spark, AKA The Ganja Ninja, Frankie the Flamethrower over there, AKA RB Cash. That's a throwback one, man. Anybody wants that one back? AKA The Backwoods Blazer. Show them how you do it.
Yeah.
AKA Mr. Ropey Knuckles. Show them those.
Yep. Give it to him.
There they are. AKA Frankie Finesse.
Yeah.
AKA Benji's for 3. AKA Baby Busey.
That's a big one.
That's a big one right there. Yeah. I also want people to remember that I am also AKA the Bearded Lover, AKA the Clown Puncher, AKA the Portly Papa Bear,
AKA the Prince Protege.
Yeah. Yep. AKA Jim Kernaga. And the list will keep continuing.
You gotta add the Prince Protege to the list.
Yeah, I'm gonna put the Prince Protege. I want to leave people with White Tyson.
Yeah,
I'll add Prince Protege in there, man. AKA Iron Lungs, AKA whatever you want to call me.
AKA an extra Glass Tiger.
Yeah, yep. AKA the Silent Six member of Glass Tiger.
Yeah.
For Benji's, AKA the unfounded member of Griselda.
Nothing wrong with that. I'll take it.
Shout out to Griselda
Benny.
boys. Yeah.
Benny.
Love Conflicted. Benny, come out here and talk about some boxing with us. Shit, he's put on a couple of events, right? I mean,
we'd love to have him.
Yeah. But I will say, man, that if you want to continue to be a champion in this world, and it is important, man, puff out your chest, go get RAFI KOHAN's book, start talking some trash, apply it to your life, continue to be a champion, and continue to roll with the champs.